Of all the games to give me a brain shake, I didn't think it'd be Persona 5, 2016's breakout JRPG Omega hit. I mean, really, it was smothering. What other half-decade-old game still gets new Instagram memes that spoil you on the villains? Shoutouts to the Persona community for that. It's not the kind of game I review, it's the longest Persona game. Thing's a behemoth, and normally, I don't have that kind of time. But thanks to an IV drip of pure Colombian blend and a total forfeiture of my freedom and time, we're finally sitting at the top of the skyscraper. Ragged. Persona 5 itself is too much. Royal is more. This game sucked the weeks, months off people's lives like it was nothing. Roped a whole new generation of fans under the Atlus umbrella. It took a shot at bridging the gap between Persona eras.
Made the money!
It really feels like P5 tried to be everything, and it worked. Shoot, I watched my wife play the original version. This thing came into my home. It made me feel unsafe. There's so much noise surrounding the discourse. Persona 5's the best game ever. Persona 5's the worst game ever. Top 10 Persona waifus. Morgana is literally the most annoying character.
Oh my god.
Unreal. Catchy kinda hot though. And it goes on. But I don't care about any of that. I played what I played, and if I'm playing by the game's rules here, following its thread about rebellion, I've gotta go it alone, so... Like the rest of the series, I'm on the enhanced version, Persona 5 Royal, with all new characters, a whole extra month of playtime, lots of stuff, and a ton of little aesthetic changes, quality of life additions, a second shot at localization. And it's easy to take that stuff for granted, but I want people to know, I know, it's woven into the walls, it's baked into the menus, it's a work of art. You know, Vanilla On looks like a weird little double person at 5 paces, and in Royal they extended the nose. Presentation is everything. And it's not to say that Atlus has it easy here. Comparing them side by side, it's kinda crazy how loved the original was when there was so much to notch and tighten, and it still made bank. So one assumes Royal is a really special version of an exceptional game. Oh my god, you guys. That's so funny I forgot to laugh. I don't think P5 is a stroke of godly brilliance, per se. You can actually quantify a lot of the good. It supports systemic and narrative coherency, or in non-douchebag terms, shit works together real good, for the most part. Between aesthetics, mechanics, and narrative elements, everything feels right, aside from the few questionable bits, but that's besides the point. I use the term opulent for golden, but man, Persona 5 brings me to tears. No, it's not on that 30k terafart tech, but it's absolutely laced with diamonds. You can smell the money they ground up and fed to the content machine. The game is expansive, clearly, and they pull a total overhaul on the proper JRPG segments from dungeons to combat. And the budget is actually important here. It allowed the team to do what they couldn't in 3 and 4, provide interesting dungeons. It allowed the team to render the traditional SMT and Persona demons as enemies instead of those boilerplate shadows. And it must have been a pain in the ass, you know. I don't want to be the guy who's got to model the mean green peen with a glossy sheen, but the rewards are clear. The game no longer feels budget. It's gone back to its roots meaningfully and simultaneously honored the work of Kazuma Kaneko, who, like, here's one of that guy's drawings. I'd say this one's pretty good, you know, no issues detected. So between a darker immediate tone, Kazuma Kaneko's designs, the reintroduction of guns into regular gameplay, damage types not seen since the first game, a meaty expansion of the system mechanics, and a verifiable epic of a plot, lengthwise anyway, Persona 5 is a celebration of the series and its history. It's a powerful thing to convey visually and to experience as someone who played the games from start to finish. So let's get it finished. What struck me right away, even more so than 3's explosive intro and 4's string of paranormal events, was how many moving parts the opening hour makes use of. I know the intro is different in vanilla, but if I preface everything with that, I'll write it 30 times and we'll be here all day. Thanks for understanding. When I say moving parts, I mean how many actors, questions, and premises hit the player at the same time. We're talking thievery, starting in medias res with a squad of buddies, shadowy transforming monsters, mysterious red-haired ally, a traitor to your group implied off the bat. The cops are bad. I'm kidding, we already knew that. You were accused of a crime unfairly before any of that. You're being interrogated by a prosecutor. You enter the Velvet Room again.
Welcome to my Velvet Room.
Igor, you sound a bit different, my friend. Mysterious phone app appears. You're seeing demons. New life, new school, new guardian. Everyone's f***ing mean to you. This amount of noise. is insane. It's actually not a terrible storytelling technique. The player's capable of inferring how these things interlink, and it helps the players who might not get hooked by the Japanese high school setting to imagine what might happen. And every major plot element might as well get rolling ASAP. I love how it works well narratively with the interrogation sequence, like you're being forced to recall these things you haven't experienced yet, basically simulating the brain fog caused by the truth serum injection. Or I have brain fog and that's hogwash. You know, beat my ass in the comments. So you, tall kid with the goofy glasses, seriously, drip it the f up, bro, are stuck on probation in some old guy's coffee shop attic. Society's given up on you, nobody wants you, everyone despises you. It's a mean intro, and considering that some powerful corrupt dude ruined your life, it's clear you're supposed to be angry. But the only way to prove yourself is being a model human. Which is great for a Persona game. Since 3, the meta's been about maxing your social stats, being the best guy ever, and solving everyone's problems, and this time you're not only taking on the burdens of similar societal rejects, you're taking on society trademark. It's just that you've got no way to get enjoyable revenge on your enemies. Yet. You mask up, awaken your persona power, and enter the cognitive realms of bad people that change their psyche by force. The Midnight Channel was pretty high concept because, like, why is it a channel? The 5's premise is at least understandable, if crazy. You're effectively entering another world via a magical phone app that lets you meddle with people's brains. I mean, they say heart, but they mean brain. It's brainwashing. You're brainwashing people. Now, normal people have shadow selves in the other world, but the really screwed up people, all the bosses, have palaces. Manifestations of their warped desires you gotta infiltrate and battle through to move the game forward. You get tutorialized twice in Royal, and it's probably because they didn't bother removing that segment from the first dungeon in Vanilla. It's annoying if you're a real gamer, just a do-guzzling piece of shit. But onboarding an audience isn't the worst crime ever, especially with so many additions and systems. Any place the player would screw up multiple times could provoke the last straw, as it were, and it's helpful when dungeons aren't just about running and killing, right? The whole concept of phantom thieves is baked into the game, and you spend a lot of time sneaking and spelunking, even platforming, getting real intimate with the dungeon. Sidebar, I read a series of fantasy novels as a kid, and every time a thief looked for traps on a door, the author described the process as making love to the door. What the f was that about? Now that you're lost in the plot, it doesn't matter how the story goes, it's gonna hook people by design. All they've gotta do is drop a new character in, have a problem arise, have interpersonal conflict happen. Persona 5 can be a painful game with its use of tension, and there's at least 10 things to keep track of at any given time, hence its frequent vignettes and new perspectives sprinkled over the course of in-game months. And they need those angles because the game runs upwards of 100 hours. Man, I don't have time for this. Come on! So pull up your phones and put that noise on muffle, cause it's time to get lost in the city. I imagine it's boring for some people to worry about setting, like, who even cares? It's not the meat of the gameplay, so why cover it at length? Firstly, because the setting's half the gameplay in most of Persona's games. They want you exploring the environment and connecting to it. What's interesting about 5 is how little you can meaningfully connect by design. You're a social reject. Your character carries himself as such, blending in, withdrawn, and you move through this bustling, dense, claustrophobic city full of caricatures of humanity, bland simulacrums you can walk through, blank faces with happy smiles. It's almost unnerving. Appropriately so, mind you, for spoiler reasons, and for narrative purposes. After all, you and your friends are society's rebel few, and everyone else comes and goes with the tide. Though it is pretty funny watching the pals hunt down another Persona user in their yearbook. Like, who could it be? Who is the mysterious thief? Come on, dipshits, it's unmistakable. And yeah, there's hardware constraints involved here too. You can't represent Tokyo accurately without a pile of people, and rendering them all in 3D space would make any given place chug or tick up the loading times, everything you don't want. I'm consistently impressed by how game devs find creative ways to tell stories with the solutions to their hardware limitations. But it's still a place that's harder to connect with than Inaba or the Bay Area of 3. It's not yours, it's everyone else's. It's too much, too often. It's a million opportunities, most of which get dropped. At least there's some kind of belonging in the quaint holes in the wall about town, but otherwise any ownership of the city comes from the memories you make in your social links and extraneous cutscenes. Which makes sense for a city. You're a fragment in time, a ghost of a shadow that lives in memories. Yeah, wow, that was really dark. The faces are more modern to fit with the setting, right? No more uggos, and no offense, I personally love the uggos because that's human, but they went out of their way here to fill the pockets of Tokyo with attractive and interesting designs. A lot of them scream mass appeal more than the Link characters of past games, and that's not an issue inherently, but it speaks to me differently. It feels more sculpted, like a Victorian garden, as opposed to the wild lawn of Inaba. 3 and 4 use deformed, chibi in-town models. Some of these are the doofiest shit I've ever seen, but we've moved on from that. We had to put down the pinwheel hat and put on the tie. Legends die in darkness. I guess that part of my appreciation for 4 got drowned out, but really, I prefer Inaba over anything these games have done because it speaks to me. It reads more human at a glance than the settings of 3 and 5. That said, I've been to Tokyo. Took the trip right after my stint in Korea because I spent barely anything except on food and kiwi beer. It's incredible seeing Shibuya rendered in 3D space, the colorful signs, the exciting streets. I mean, I bought my Marlboro figure here in Nakano Broadway. I think Tokyo is an incredible place to visit, and it definitely won over new fans, because isn't Tokyo the highest interest setting for weebs? Period? There's no shame in that, but thanks to the outcast factor, I felt more adrift in Tokyo than Inaba. It's not home. Whatever that means. And yeah, I gave Atlas a hand and a mouth for the graphic design of 4, but 5 caught my eye before that for obvious reasons. I've seen takes like, yeah, this is PS2 era, basically. But no. Get your f***ing eyes checked, Twitter guy. 5 takes its menu and HUD to complex and visually interesting places not seen in most games, period, and denying it is raw slander. I mean, you don't have to like the simple designs and flat color aesthetics or whatever, but give me a break with that. Game's a feast. Its aesthetic elements are top class. It deserves praise, and Royal only served to polish the grime. Now, I like the cast well enough. The voice acting's pretty great. Ryuji might be one of the best voiced characters I've ever heard dubbed in English. I still think Yusuke's a little stiff, little overly adult, but his writing doesn't help, so the party's a bit weird. They're all billed as misfits or outcasts, but that's not really true, at least considering structural power in the world. Here, let me explain. Morgana's a strange cat chibi, more or less this game's Teddy, who thinks he's human, but can't confirm it. Fair enough. Ryuji's an ex-track team kid who got his team disbanded, so he's looked down on by his once teammates, and he's not rich. Sure. Futaba's an anxious, asocial shut-in dealing with trauma. Fine. An, Makoto, Haru, and Yusuke are all effectively socialites. We're talking daughter of renowned fashion designers, the class president and top student of your school, the daughter of a rich burger chain CEO, and a young artist literally living in the patronage system. You could argue that these wealthier or more privileged characters go through plot events that make them outcasts to one degree or another. Yusuke is eccentric.
Damn. I didn't know Christ was a JoJo.
And struggles to actually deal with patronage because it's compromising his artistic values. Haru doesn't really grasp the struggles of the poor and doesn't really have autonomy, per se. Makoto's on such a railroad that she's never been a normal teenager, and An's been cast out by her peers because of a teacher's transgressions. But society as a whole has a place for them. They're mostly safe. Like, even Naoto and Kanji hit that idea of outcast and rebel better than many of P5's main cast, which is kinda weird in a game that presents like it does, for a game that's so thematically cohesive otherwise. And I probably shouldn't harp on this too long because it's less about young rebels against society or the working poor rising up or anything, and more about teens being exploited by, quote, shitty adults. So that's the get out of jail free card. Almost all of them deal with that, and the pursuit of vigilante justice in a corrupt system. Regardless, rebellion's the word of the day. Yeah, game says its themes out loud. Often.
Oh yeah, just write her psyche out on the walls. More subtle than DMC, though.
Hence the darker tone, hence the various assholes you meet, hence the police portrayal as incompetent or evil, hence the social links featuring social rejects, hence the phantom thieves. Because of fate, or an app, or something, you and your friends can trip up and reform society by stealing the hearts of men. A lot of this, to be clear, is rebellion as aesthetic, not actually challenging societal structures of power, and that's kind of frustrating in a game that explores power thematically, specifically with the antagonist, Shido, but we'll get to him later. All of this is to say that the tonal shift from 3 to 4 isn't moving in reverse. It's not a total edgester game or whatever. If anything, it's a synthesis. Hard black, long coat, picaresque aesthetic mixed with a group of kids who ideate about being rebellious in that area of their lives where they can, and otherwise being students. It harkens back to Philemon from the early games, using masks to represent the many facets that make up a person, shedding one's mask to self-actualize and realize power, or awaken one's persona. So how do you advance? How did they advance social systems from the earlier entries? Question: why does Persona want me to get depression? Okay, that's a bit dramatic. Time was always king in Persona, at least 3 and on. And I love time management. I love that Persona is interested in teaching players about time management. Not that I think it's best taught in a massive week-long binge session or whatever you gremlins get up to, but that aside, time is fun to strategize. Persona 5, on the other hand, and worse than 3 or 4, jerks your attention in 10 to 20 directions on any given day at any given time. It is very difficult to stay focused and deliberate when you're facing a mental block 10 feet tall called analysis paralysis. You get lost in the train station in Shibuya, wandering its nooks and crannies, juggling social links, the various only this day tasks, the day trips, the JRPG, games, tough. I'd go as far as saying social activity is harder than the combat, purely because it'll burn you out faster than anything. Days trickle by, gummed up by the endless walls of text, the overfamiliar scenarios you repeat ad nauseum. And it isn't really different than the older games inherently, just that your options have proliferated. For once, I don't even need to list your social stat boost options. They're everywhere. Some efficient point gain is locked in social links, and really the only stat I had trouble consistently boosting to full was kindness, because I'm just kind of an asshole. I've killed thousands, but it all gets done in a reasonable amount of time, so it's hard to complain. But it's worth noting that Royal added a bunch of free stuff, like crosswords for knowledge, and I can't imagine doing that grind again without those bonuses. Other times you're caught needing SP boosting items, so you gotta make curry or coffee at the shop, or wash armor tokens to get new gear, and those tasks take up time blocks as well. Thankfully, a certain link will let you pay for those services to save a ton of time, at least. I recall complaining about the time-sensitive links in the past video. Well, thankfully, a kind person on Twitter DM'd me asking if I was aware of the social link requirements to unlock Royal's additional content month. Because believe me, I knew well enough to chat up red-haired girl, but apparently you have to max out real-life meme guy. Yeah, salt that soup, you dirty bitch. And Akechi, everyone's favorite character. Now, I imagine almost nobody misses the Royal content, coming off vanilla. Like, obviously you want to see all the new links if you're a fan. They shove Kasumi in your face from the start, and everyone seems to love Dr. Maruki, but Akechi used to be automatic, and in Royal, he isn't. Makes sense, they wanted to flesh him out with the new stuff, let the player build an actual bond. But could you put that shit on the box? Akechi is, in the politest terms, a jackass elemental until the very late game. Constantly poking around the Phantom Thieves, trying to put them away as the young ace detective, constantly implying that your actions are wrong, and always passive-aggressive. The least toxic trait a guy can have.
This guy blows in and eats our food. I got one word for you, okay? Perish.
He's the most punchable person in the game by a mile, so I had 0 points, obviously, and had to rush the guy's link by pure chance. And it's decent, does some work redeeming the character, but what a nightmare, man. I mean, there's more than enough people competing for your time. Why is it my job to be Akechi's friend? Go make your own friends, Akechi. Oh, wait. So the question everyone's asking: what the hell's going on with the modern day social links? How'd the hardware, the budget, change everything? I mean, it really didn't that all. Well, not structurally anyway. It's not that social links were bad in the past, just that they contribute to the game pushing the player into a walkthrough reading play pattern, which isn't my favorite way ever to handle role-playing, and it does this, often, by requiring that you mimic a character's personality back at them with dialogue responses tailored to make them like you. Is there a term for this? Being manipulative? Yeah, okay, we all tailor our responses in life, but aren't you tired of being nice? Don't you just want to go ape shit? You know what, man? I have some friendships that have lasted since elementary, that have lasted through my open neglect, because we're bigger than that. We've argued, we've had issues, and we're good. We coexist despite differences, and you can't do that cleanly in a game, no matter how much I want it, because then there's no role-playing. Every response is just fine, but I still think links could be a little more. Again, systems not broken, just consistently unchanged since the beginning. Except you can't reverse your links, generally. I mean, I finally said f it and dated almost every girl in the game just to see what happens. Turns out you get to feel bad on Valentine's Day, die, and face 0 gameplay consequences, so not much different than 4. Awfully brave of the teacher to show up looking for her high school boyfriend when some kids from her school are right there. What they did change is the stakes. Because you're a Phantom Thief this time, they put almost every character in a horrible situation, often involving family or work or crime. Things that highlight how screwed up society is, and they have you fix these issues by changing the hearts of the Link characters' abusers. Like you'll find the evil version of these jackoffs in Mementos, the Shadow Realm basically, beat them up and turn them them in a protein.
No, I don't want to be protein! No!
And that ability to do an incredible kindness for these characters with the combat half of the game helps build bonds that transcend dialogue options. In many cases, you save them from terrible fates. It's not bad. It's also worth noting that the links provide abilities for the combat half of the game, too. And while I think some of this stuff should be baseline, like the shogi player's party swap abilities, it's still a great incentive to check everyone out and a tangible benefit beyond just XP. In short, they dodged my criticism about role-playing by swerving that element and going for the gameplay narrative tie-in. Smart play. Now that I think about it, I haven't enjoyed a ton of the links outside of specific party members and like Hierophant. And I'm still there. Sojiro is great. Persona consistently nails older men characters, I'd say. There's no need to make them quirky weirdos or bad at cooking, lol. They're just good-ass characters. I love crying at the end of the game, bro. Let's go. Temperance, Kawakami, the teacher link. Okay, I said my piece in the third video about teachers, but Kawakami has a few points in her favor. She's a consistently likable character. She struggles like too many people I know, and she works hard for what she has. She doesn't try to romance the player character, she rejects him multiple times. Questions the scenario multiple times, tries to cut off the relationship at least twice, eventually do something nobody could ever do and turn her life around. Yeah, I think the maid scenario is gaudy and gross. Hearing her call a grade 10 kid master makes me want to vom, but yeah, removing myself from the reality of the game, she's probably the best Link. But since we care about role-playing and the reality of the fiction,
You're going to prison, lady! Wee woo! Here comes the consequences of your actions!
you know, a lot of the Links are fairly one-dimensional or openly insane. I get that these people feel powerless in the face of adversity, but some of them really need to call a lawyer. Seriously. And Links like the Shogi girl, I mean, did you really just say the quiet part out loud? That's beyond exposition, man. That's like soupsposition. The son, or politician Link, is interesting because I genuinely can't tell if they had to dumb down the political talk for a broader audience, or if 90% of the text is as vapid as it is because the writer just wasn't up and up on their politics, or if the producer stepped in. It kept bringing up young people are struggling and society is corrupt and all these broad ideas, which are true, but never touched on legislation or policy or anything concrete. And that's frustrating because, hey, this is your one clear chance, in an optional social link, to write something meaningful in a game about rebellion. And it's deathly silent. Actually, I've been pretty quiet about this game's more unfortunate elements. Persona always has a few tactless bits, so did they learn their lesson? No. 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 Okay. Now, party links don't typically have the benefit of changing someone's heart in Mementos, and in that sense don't use or abuse drama as effectively as some of the normal links. That's fine, they all go through a lot over the course of their actual story arcs. Their persona awakenings and confrontations are a testament to that, but it leaves their links lacking in drama or urgency. Take Haru, for example. She frets about her place in the company her father leaves her, and takes her concerns to the acting CEO. And every anxiety is hand-waved like the issues were never there. It's the same with Yusuke, wondering about his future making art if he's forced to compromise his integrity for the sake of marketing. But by the end, he's allowed into the system with no real conditions, and everything's just fine. None of them really stand out to me as necessary or inextricable additions to the characters, but maybe I'm just burnt out on Persona. I can still see how these characters are appealing to different people, and the designs are great. I specifically like Makoto because she presents as unassuming, isn't a walking object. In battle, she's clad in armored biker gear. Her persona's a motorcycle. She has fist weapons. She shoots a revolver. She's suited up with all this stereotypical masculine iconography, and isn't immediately drooling over the player like Rise. That's at least one kind of normal person. Let's go! Party links are necessary anyway because, like before, they give rise to new skills, personas, and passive abilities. They're the most rewarding in terms of raw gameplay payout. So social stuff, stats, links, etc. They're fine. In fact, some are exceptional, but the most fun I had was in the palaces. Here's palaces. Now you gotta remember that palaces are cognitive places where the rules of reality distort to perception. First of all, nice callback to 2 and rumors turning real, if that's intentional, I'm not sure. Second, it's why model guns work in dungeons. I mean, come on, they never show teenagers buying real guns, but since the enemies think they're real, they are real. Good cover, Atlas, that's plausible deniability. Oh, the kids aren't shooting anybody, it's all in fake! It's just cognition. The kids aren't hanging out in bars or dating teachers. Oh no, that actually happened. Cut the clip. I mean, I'm scared to look up the plot holes that come out of a premise like that. The world being shaped by perception implies so much, but since it's magic, you can rewrite the rules on the fly and nobody gets to whine because their complaints end up in a Reddit thread. It doesn't matter. Why am I talking about this? The palaces are stunning, from Kamoshida's medieval castle aesthetic to Matarame's glittering museum to the casino and cruise line. They're all beautifully rendered, enjoyable to platform through, explore, find hidden paths in. They're creepy. They all fit the distorted yet plausible design space well, with the castle really being the school, the casino being the apparently rigged courthouse. I like that they lean into fantastical representations of real-world places, like real life, but cool. That face when you will never be a Japanese high schooler with friends and the power to kill gods. They tend to be gated and filled up with puzzles, none of which are things I've never seen or experienced. It's very, yes, this kind of puzzle, like Golden Sun or something. Interacting enough with any given problem will usually push you through it, and that's not a criticism. At this point, I'll take anything other than randomly generated dungeon floors. And those were fine, but it's time to move on, yeah? The major benefit of Phantom Thievery, now that dungeons are more meticulous and last longer, is the intimacy you develop with this space through your actions. You sneak through segments avoiding enemies, you steal goods scattered on the map and sell them later at your fence or a gun shop guy. Man, there's a contextual reason to back attack enemies. It's not just a mechanical benefit like before. 5 nails aesthetic so often really can't scream enough about how well chosen the Phantom Thief conceit was. This all culminates in locating the main treasure in a dungeon and pulling a heist, which will change the heart of the palace ruler. And that's only greenlit by sending a calling card. It means, aside from quality theming, that you're not allowed to complete dungeons in a single day, which can put the player's mismanaged time into crunch, but like the game plasters everywhere, take your time. Yeah, everything's tough, but it's gonna be okay. True enough, it's highlighted by the various safe rooms that allow for saving and fast travel, and normal difficulty isn't suffocating, except for maybe 1 or 2 fights in the base game. And I took down almost every challenge under level. In any case, the palaces may share structure, but the execution is so varied. They're really great.
I really love Persona 5's approach to combat. When you got 4 games behind you, 2 of them having some of the smoothest combat in the business, it's hard to impress. But everything from the renewed focus on action parity to the royal exclusive frills make it my favorite in the series to actually play. The basic rules haven't changed much, right? You want to strike first, but it's really easy to do with the new sneaking mechanics. Shoot, Kasumi's social link unlocks a grappling hook attack so you can ignore stealth at range for free. Actually, I was enjoying playing a rogue type person.
I mean, that's cutting part of the intimacy out, part of the fantasy out. Oh, come on, I'm trying to make a point.
Your basic options are attack, guard, use persona abilities, or shoot. Guns took a hiatus from the series after the first game, and it's nice to see them back. Everyone loves kids with guns, though they mostly exist as an extraneous damage option. Some enemies happen to be weak to guns and they don't reload, so don't waste Haru's single grenade launcher round all in one place. You still knock enemies down by hitting weaknesses and pull those big all-out attacks when everyone's down, only this time they pulled the contact system over from the early entries, so you can bully hapless demons into joining your cause. And that's fun for some people. It's definitely more involved than just pulling a card like 4, and unlike the early games, it's streamlined, limited to 3 dialogue options, twice, to determine if a contact is successful or not. Otherwise, you just get items or a sucker punch. I really appreciate that 5 pulls from the classics, but makes them accessible to human beings. I especially like that I can rob the demons blind and just murder him after. Yeah, that'll teach you for eternal punishment. The major mix-ups are technicals and baton passes. Basically, you can hit certain enemies with certain elements while they're suffering from a status effect. Buddy's frozen? Smash him with nuclear damage, okay? Feared targets get technicaled by psychic damage. Whatever it is, it'll knock the enemy down. They're not always perfectly intuitive, but they work, and reward bothering with statuses. Something I avoided through most of the games in general, most JRPGs in general, but it's not a system to rely on because, of course, status ailments can never be good lest they become one-button combat solvers. So technicals are a niche but enjoyable tool in the belt. Baton passes really get me going though. Remember when I talked about action parity in 3 and 4? In 3 you could take away enemy turns by hitting enemy weaknesses. The game proudly rewarded the player for paying attention to weaknesses and let you steamroll many normal battles and sub-bosses for free. In 4 they took away the ability to completely destroy enemies this way. They retained their actions and could simply simply stand up after being downed. Persona 5 keeps the system four-put in place, but if you hit a weakness, you can either take your extra action or pass it off to a team member, and it can chain until the whole party's gone if they keep hitting weaknesses. And each consecutive pass gets bonus power and other benefits. Now, you can only baton pass like this so much in a given round of combat, right? You can't hold priority forever and deny opponents the ability to attack or anything. And to be clear, the late game really starts challenging the player's ability to do this with frequent high-power single enemies, or enemies with few to no weaknesses. But that's how it should be. 3 can get excessively easy in places, and this system not only allows the devs to sculpt encounters and tailor difficulty with really small changes to weakness spreads, but it also directly converts your friends and your teamwork into mechanical advantage. Please always do this. In any game, integrate those important narrative elements, friends, into player power. I need it! The last minor addition from Royal is the Showtime system, or damage for free. No, really, you'll land a technical or get your shit pushed in, and suddenly you're rewarded with free damage. Most of them are pretty cool to watch. Most.
This is how I really feel! Oh, thanks! You have such good taste! Yeah! Yeah! Get a load of this! Perfect!
Look at Joker. That's the face of a man who's just witnessed the namby-pambiest shit yet conceived. I think I should hate this because it's basically free and feels totally random, but the animations are so much fun to watch the first time. I mean, come on, Makoto does her best Star Platinum impression, Ryuji eats food. Hell yeah, my dude, I love food! Bosses have evolved in interesting ways throughout the series. I mean, the classic titles don't do a lot with complicating boss battles, minus a few, but 3 picked up a more aspirational thread that spun into a whole slew of interesting battles in 4. Most of 5's battles are incredible. The Kamoshida fight, building on having taught the player about guarding strong attacks earlier in the dungeons, incorporates that angle alongside multiple targets, choice of target, context-sensitive maneuvers, buffs, and boss healing. Plus, like, that giant disgusting mutant eating people and half-drinking the phony on in his wine glass, and she's not animated at all. It's perfect. After that strong start, the game runs through the baton pass boss, the farting boss. Sorry, that's the sleep or die boss. Somebody's fetish. The no seriously, baton pass for real, or put the controller down for 20 minutes and die fight.
Wow, I am so angry.
The I have no weaknesses but plenty of strengths boss, and the final bosses that I'll talk about later. Most have interesting mechanical quirks, or at the very least look flashy and make use of strong cutscenes to sell the characters the fights are relevant to. Basically each of the party members. Like before, if you're ever in a tough spot, you can usually fuse a persona strong against the boss in some way and take it down without much hassle. Not much has changed about the entire persona system outright. I mean, aside from things like negotiation and passive abilities and fiddly bits, personas are what they've always been, demons that give you power or alternative movesets. 5, and Royal in particular, gives the player a lot of leeway to customize their setup, allowing players to do stuff like convert personas into XP for other ones, maybe unlocking an upcoming ability. You can turn them into items, you can fuse them up, you can register existing movesets and recall those exact characteristics later if you want to fuse one of your good ones away now. Royal hands out bonuses via the fusion alarm system, which essentially means the game says, "Wee woo, it's time for an overpowered persona, get your ass to the Velvet Room," and you do. Because why wouldn't you? The system's extremely low resistance and fun. Like, not for the demons, but, I mean, yo wait, electric chair? What the f***? Chainsaw? What the fuck? Igor, this is serious, okay? I need you to listen to me for a sec. What the hell happened to you? You were that weird guy who fused my personas, and I've watched you lose or remove your employees, replace them with younger women, drown yourself in booze, luxury, and I come here and see this. I mean, Igor. If you're still not strong enough, you can always hit up Mementos for a little grind, little bonus procedurally generated dungeon delving, sticker stamping, side quest completing. Based on how much you know about me from my channel, how much do you think I enjoyed Mementos? Yeah, probably about that much. Leave a comment below, please. And Royal tacked on even more mementos. Thank you, Royal. Very cool. Man, I love getting 30 texts in a month about new requests on the Phantom Thieves website to solve problems in the side quest zone. I love doing tons of side quests in my 100-hour JRPG I'm recording on the clock. So thoughtful of you to remind me constantly, guys. Mementos? Kinda busy with the plot right now. Would you care to try mementos? Social links come first. We can deal with the normies later.
You should really take a look at mementos.
You know what? Alright, I gotta do the rundown. I miss Persona 4's party. 5 tries to pick up where 4 left off, with the small town rats that end up tighter than family. Though to be fair, P5's the real rat game. Maybe it's the setting, maybe it's the vibes, but that party hit me, even with the dumb gags and miscellaneous issues. Persona 5's crew, the Phantom Thieves, are great, but they're cut from the same cloth as 3's. Disparate city kids who'd never be friends in a million years, if not for this story. Yeah, okay, I know that's not saying much, and I don't know, maybe they're not cutesy enough. Maybe it's because a chunk of them are already established, successful people. They're just not as personally relatable to me. Let's lay them out. Morgana's a strong healer, at least in Royal with his additional persona evolutions. Everyone says he's annoying, but I mean, Buddy has one moment of weakness in the middle of the game. It's justified by his pre-existing inner struggle, and it moves the plot forward. Maybe I'm just getting old or tolerant or something, but he might be the most inoffensive thing I've seen in a game, at least proportional to the hate he gets. I just personally don't care for chibi animal weirdos. I mean, he's chief simp, but isn't that the online meta these days? So like, heartbeat. Ryuji shares the main character's voice and buddy role with Morgana. He's voiced well enough that you'll like him by the end no matter what happens. And unlike Yosuke, he's not a prick. He stays strong until the endgame. He's there from the start, and well, there's only one problem.
Damn it! This is bullshit! God! Fuck!
Damn, no wonder he's statistically the least liked by Japanese fans. I think his anger pisses off that segment of the fanbase the way being a pretty boy genius pisses off Westerners. Han's a good damage dealer and an airhead or something. I feel dirty saying that, but she really is a person or something. I guess she bums me out because as a model and teenager in dominatrix gear, I don't really feel strong person energy from her. I'm getting some objective desire vibes, you know? She shares an issue with Ryuji as well, in that by the time you've met Haru, they feel like legacy characters. Yeah, they're the Phantom Thieves, but the story moved on from their arcs so long ago. It's like they're shadows. And I played this whole game in under a month, so I don't know. You tell me if I'm crazy. Yusuke pisses me off slightly because he really did grow on me, and it took a while, but between his ice damage setting up critical technical hits, his sweet persona,
About a Huda fat boof, brother. Respect.
and his quirks, the guy won me over. But can we avoid giving teenagers this super stilted, artsy dialogue? Like, I'm not totally stupid. I get he's an artist, but I'm a writer, and every time he talks, I watch words die on the field of good intentions. It genuinely makes me think his Japanese dialogue was originally poetic and elegant, not this, holy shit, I'm trying really f***ing hard to sound smart, you guys. Anyway, Makoto's a good utility character. I think she's a huge dub for basically acting as an oasis for people who just want an unassuming human being as a party member. Persona almost always gives its main cast of women oddball features, or at least gives them fantastic lives or lineages. Granted, she's class president and top student, but it's closer to home than a teen model or a rich kid. Can't really beat her combat gear, and her interactions with Ryuji are top-notch, so S+. Futaba's an exploration of social disconnect to some. She's easily more compelling than Fuka or Rise, her party slot ancestors, and working through her trauma is pretty endearing. Being close to Sojiro brings her closer than other characters, plus her support is exceptionally useful, saving your ass from dumb mistakes and misclicks when you're severely underleveled in certain battles. I think the overt nerd speak grates a bit. She's like a walking gamer geek t-shirt, Jesus, but other times it's cute. I think the only issue with Futaba is her insufferable Coomer groupies. Guys, she's 15. Keep it to yourself. Haru gets a lot of flack for getting dropped into the party halfway through the game, which, yeah, it's a bit tight after that, but she still has plenty of time to contribute to the party, at least in combat. Deals hella damage, bro. Let's go! Haru suffers from being hard to relate to, being too proper to the point of being boring, and her deal with the Phantom Thieves being, you know, providing vegetables. Ooh, boys, gang's coming down with a case of the low vitamins. Call Haru stat. She's got some of the best combat gear and ended up being super useful for several battles, but she could vanish and I don't think it'd matter. Akechi's image was rehabilitated in Royal, maybe because he's the protagonist's rival, maybe because he was supposed to be more in the base game, maybe because he's popular. He's a fun party member. Look, he does a little dance. But Akechi's also despised by a huge portion of the fan base, and I was there until very late in the game. I'm not gonna spoil it in full, but the guy lays out his motivations, and they boil down to being overly competitive, having a hard time fitting in, craving recognition, and having a weird father situation. And like, will you shut the hell up and get out of my head? You don't know me, Persona. You don't f***ing know me. I understand this character more viscerally than anyone else on the menu. I've been there. So I don't hate this guy, but only because of Royal's additions. As an original Royal add-on, Kasumi's an interesting character, especially because she comes off totally flat. We're talking overly polite, cute girl, superstar, athlete. She smells of Mary Sue.
Oh, don't sit on the anti-homelessness measures bench.
But the story veers in a completely unexpected direction that fits Persona as a series and makes her another interesting character to empathize with. I actually like that a lot about this entry in particular. Even though the gang comes over and studies, even though you'll occasionally go on day trips, vacations, take a ton of group photos, I still never felt the same warmth of 4. That small town, tight-knit, friends are family vibe. Can you really blame me though? Like, we go from Mickey Mouse to in the same scene. Yeah, I bet you all feel real stupid now. My interest is in how the game presents justice as a concept. I fundamentally don't believe in justice, at least the version of the word that gets clumsily tossed around in classrooms and family dinners. There's no universal rule for justice. There's no individual who can single-handedly enact justice. The judiciary system might suck shit to deal with, but it exists because there's no sole justice. And because it's an industry. It's a fluid idea, but people tend to crystallize their thoughts on justice pretty early and hold to them. Persona 5, more than the other games, asks you to examine your justice, what you're really trying to do, and why, if it's even acceptable. And that heady self-reflection, because it is a tough question, is compounded by characters who challenge your justice actively, while the game challenges you to empathize with them. I guess in that sense, it's a more rewarding party than some to come to grips with, but then I thought Junpei and Yukari both challenged the player in different, meaningful ways, so maybe it's just the honeymoon phase. P5's a dense game, and there's a lot to work through, and I saved the story segment for the end, cause hopefully we're on the same page now, more or less.
So, my script is unhelpfully asking me to do an exposition skit. And to put it in the simplest possible terms, exposition tends to be when you tell instead of show. And that's the skit.
The first question I'm asking when a game story falls in my lap is simple. How are they telling the story? With cutscenes, with mechanics, with animations, and with about 50% more text than the previous game. That's not a stretch, by the way, and boy howdy did I feel it. Apparently Persona 5 was structured like a series of novels published together. And no f***ing kidding with the amount of text in this thing. Jesus! So the story feels more like a series of clear chapters that occur month over month, more or less. It lets the thieves collect members, solve bigger and bigger issues until they reach the top. And because each chapter tends to involve a new character, the drama and interactions can stay fresh. It's a decent structure and helpful for a game that's traditionally taken place over months. For more hours than can probably be justified, the story has to keep moving or people fall off, hence the endless injections. The only trouble that arises here really is the tonal imbalance. I don't think it's a crime to jerk tone around, but the note that the first chapter strikes is much stronger than almost everything after it, save for the final chapters, which shouldn't make sense. They're the smallest stakes, taking the entire world into consideration, but the situation is so contained, oppressive, and egregious, it demands player attention. This washed-up Olympian is an abusive teacher, and the story that loops the player, Ryuji, An, and Mishima, one of the social links, together is a decent Phantom Thief origin tale, a pack of kids out for impossible revenge against an impossible situation. It's insane to sit through, actually caricature, but it hammers the point home. Society sucks, everyone's complicit or against you, and it's only by pure luck, pure magic that anything changes. Well, that and your own initiative. This pattern continues, but grows in scope. You deal with an abusive artist, a mob boss, a business tycoon, and eventually hit the big time. You uncover how these people and these events are connected, but as the game progresses, you lose that incredible tension the intro strung up. Don't get me wrong, there's always a new threat. They're always trying to inject that danger again, a new way your identity could be compromised, and even when the actual events that move the plot forward are contrived or stretched suspension of disbelief, the story gets where it needs to. And since you're teased about being betrayed very early, you have to assume it's coming. Eventually. Sidebar, I love these little vignettes with the prosecutor like, "You're a Phantom Thief. Obviously you had someone covering for you. Tell me." And it's always the doofiest person imaginable. Despite the dark tone that Persona 5 strives for and its insistence on the grayness of the situation, it ends up painting a fairly black and white image of society. Power corrupts, those without power are virtuous or salvageable, and you can unsympathetically enact justice on almost every villain, because they're the most cartoonishly evil people to ever grace Persona's stage. Though I do think that angle gets memed a bit much. I've seen enough snarky memes about the quality of 5's antagonists, usually written something like, "This
listing all the motivations and qualities of certain villains, then labeling Shido with just evil. And it kind of betrays the youth of the audience because for my money, Shido's the best villain in the game, and he should be. He's the guy at the top. Look, it's not often that video games explore power super well, like Matsuno's political dramas are pretty great, but that's like one guy's vision, and 5 doesn't give Shido enough screen time to really hit it home, but it's something. There are people in this world who do not care about feelings, morals, values, people, anything. They care about power, consolidating power and denying power to others. It's realpolitik, politics, where the players have no morals, only interest in power. You will find, the older you get, that society doesn't run on morals and values. You want to imagine it does, but disappointingly, it runs on power. It's why some of our most prestigious professions are packed with narcissists and psychopaths. It's why people will backstab you, step on you, attempt to destroy you in the workplace. Why people can be casually cruel. Why people ask, why doesn't the manager like me? Why is my boss such a prick? These people do not care about anything but power. Shido is the perfect representation of this systemic reality, a person who manipulates everyone around him, who truly has no friends, who weasels and deals and funds his way to the top, who viciously cuts down everyone around him, even his most trusted allies. He's a person I would have said didn't exist when I was younger, because I wanted to think the world was a better place, but it's not, and Shido's the best villain in the game for it. Even his boss fight deals with power, like physical manifestations of who he is, propped up by this twisted humanoid biomass, and it ends with him physically powering up DBZ style, something that might have been lame or cliche if it weren't perfectly representative of his character. It goes the final step of forcing a 1v1 with the protagonist, but that only makes it juicier when you slap his tits off. Since I'm talking about the ending, you have approximately 3 seconds to leave the video before I get spoilery. It was a good run though, thanks for coming out. Commentating the ending is tough because, playing Royal, I knew this game wasn't finished yet, and this thing's long enough that it's kind of a massive bummer having to delve Mementos, my favorite place, just to hand in my plot coupons and redeem the ending. But whatever, you travel through the place, fight a cup, and by some means I won't explain, Mementos fuses with the real world, effectively recreating reality. The player knows that Mementos is a cognitive realm that fills the gap between palaces, but in case they didn't pick it up, they make it clear that Mementos is like the combined palace of all mankind. The deeper you go, the more people you find in cages, and eventually you find the antagonists you've beaten throughout the game, all resigned to their fates, wondering why you're even fighting, because Mementos represents the distorted desire of the people to not worry about their problems, not have to make decisions, follow a 100% walkthrough and never make mistakes or think for themselves. Unfortunately, Persona hasn't quit that trick, but good self-reflection, guys. This ends with the party battling against the god of control, or wish deity, or whatever. It's thematically designed, engaging, strong, but I can't stop thinking about the implications this has for the other Persona games. To my knowledge, the Persona games take place in the same universe, and I'm assuming 5 does too, so what does that say about the other existential threats and local deities screwing around? I mean, during that one ending scene, I genuinely thought Nyarlathotep was coming back. But no. So is this world just like an onion, layered with tons of powerful gods and demons? Anyway, you awaken to a new power and your devil daddy comes to blow God's face off with a gun. And if you're wondering, but what about thematic analysis? What about thematic analysis? According to the devs, Persona 5 was written to be thematically digestible and focuses on rebellion and personal freedom above all else. It shows that with all its characters. It shows it with the boss. I can't stress it enough. Your raging steel boner kills human hive mind God. Can it be any clearer? The real question isn't whether the game demonstrated its own themes, but whether they actually work, and kind of. It's foreshadowed by your probation period, right? You're not able to actually do what you please. You get a framework, a little rat maze to move around in and make the most of. And that's fine. Does good by showing how not to succumb to adversity and general mistreatment. But what the game never actually sells is rebellion against society, really. Joker and his friends might hate shitty adults, but that doesn't stop them from ultimately listening to and rehabilitating shitty adults when the chance arises. The Phantom Thieves might hate the police, but they'll still let the bad guys whose hearts they steal turn themselves into the broke-ass justice system they decry. The same system we watch fumble around, totally poisoned by corruption. Shoot, Makoto wants to be a police chief because she'll reform it from the inside with good intentions. It's what I hate about the world, the same nagging problem from earlier. It's a poser game. It's rebel couture. It talks itself up but doesn't deliver. You don't end up making clear and tangible changes to the world at large. Like, it tells you that you're basically reforming Japan, but it won't show what's changing visibly except for the game's major characters. You impact a few individuals, change a few hearts, and save a few people. And to be clear, that kind of limited scope is kind of necessary for a game to be easily digestible, but all the police forgiveness and phony strutting about our justice really amounts to a vague hope for the future without action, without direction, without a plan. Like, we'll sort it out, guys. Don't sweat it. I'm just tired. And I know, obviously Atlas isn't gonna throw revolutionary imagery or talk about the wage gap or something, but this game was directly inspired by the 2011 tsunami that devastated Japan, and apparently most of the game is inspired directly from real-world figures, even though it isn't, I guess, and how they fumbled through the crisis. And when that's the impetus for a creative work, this angry ball of thread, and it's unraveled limply over 100 hours, I just don't understand. Hit harder, make it less consumable for a broad audience. Own it. 4 had the power of friendship ending. It was at least 50% cringe, but it owned the scene. Now, I'm not totally unreasonable, just a long-haired slob with a hang-up, and really, it's possible that a work can fail to totally demonstrate its message, but succeed in sending its message anyway. And Royal tacked on a whole month, so let's talk spoilers. Looking back, Persona 5 was backed by a wave of hype, but everything popular meets some resistance. On release, older fans bemoaned certain elements of 5, found it lacking compared to its forebears, which is wild to imagine today because Royal added so much, tweaked so many knobs to perfection. It's hard to imagine this game being thought of as inferior in some way. I don't personally vibe with 5 as much as I probably should, but I think it beats the hell out of previous games in terms of combat, dungeons, the JRPG in general. It's a more enjoyable game to play, inch by inch, measurably. So Royal managed to rehabilitate Persona 5 to some degree. It's a stark set of changes, and once you factor in the nerdy stuff, suddenly understandable why it was released as a standalone title, even if there's only 1 new month and 3 new characters. This rehabilitation of image extends to the plot as well. Instead of focusing on rebellion, it shifts over to something closer to freedom or liberty. The bad guy, can I say it? It's a spoiler. The bad guy, Dr. Maruki, school counselor and nice guy trademark, does some highly suspect and improbable nonsense to effectively split the universe, kinda like Mementos, fusing with reality in the original ending. Here, everyone leads a good life, and you think that'd be cut and dry, like, okay. But Akechi starts asking questions, and suddenly the story's about control again, and about living a life you can be proud of, about autonomy and agency, and it's compelling enough. Maruki makes sense, but so does Akechi, and the only real factors that undercut Maruki's perfect world are his limited powers, presumed to have only altered some people's lives for the best, and that Maruki has some really embarrassing escapist tendencies. This is the FFTA story argument again. Okay. I can do this. That means, because Maruki is escaping his trauma, that he's wrong. Solved it! Everyone can call me a hero now! I like the drama of watching a character who's built up powerfully over the course of the game totally buckle under the weight of being challenged so thoroughly, it breaks his personality. It was a fun segment. That's it. You want more? So instead of focusing on rebellion or fixing society, it ends up focusing on unfixing society, implying that it's not possible unless we all can do it together. Good luck with that, reinstating the status quo. And it's good drama, but it's slightly frustrating. The way everyone talks about owning their pain and suffering makes me think, dang, there's definitely some wheelchair kid who can walk in Maruki's world, but you know what? F that guy. He owns that pain, bro. Let's go, bro! I don't know how to engage with this without snarking for 20 minutes. Yeah, individuality, agency, that's all important. It's not really clear whether that was actually stolen from the party anyway, but instead of the society-reforming phantom thieves making their best effort to reshape society, they put it back to square one and end it with vague hope again. Or better, with this little gem.
But what about the people who want to take on the world themselves? How's it right to rob them of their opportunities?
I hope you never have to live in chronic pain. I hope you never have to be trapped in abject poverty with no hope of social mobility. I hope you don't have to pay your rent and insulin just to live. I hope you have voting rights. Why does all this stuff feel like it was written by a 45-year-old man? Why, of all the notes to end it on, did I have to end it on that? Persona was fun. It started a bit slow, but you know, all those games are playable. I think 1 and Eternal Punishment stretched playability a bit, at least for people who aren't plugged into the JRPG matrix or whatever, but playing old JRPGs is badass, and I think you're at least kinda cool if you do. It's always fascinating to watch a series change and grow, see its shifting facets and changing masks. Persona's been long. Persona's been hard. If you snark about this being a dick joke, I will do your genital a chop. Persona's been cool and warm and fresh. I know I'm contentious sometimes. Can't help my brain, dude. It's been there since birth. I know we've all had some disagreements, but hopefully we've had some laughs too. I think I've shared more about my life in this video series than anything prior, so consider that our level 1 link. There's no benefit. I simply exist. Silently. I can't thank my patrons enough for greenlighting this project. Y'all know there's more down the road, and the train ain't stopping yet. Until then, it's back to business as usual. Another late morning, another drip of coffee. And there's worse fates, I think.
Hey, it's KBash. Special thanks goes out to my $4 patrons, whose names are on the screen. The show's on its way somewhere good thanks to the community's generosity. And special thanks goes out to my extra generous patrons who are...
A Dead Diehard, Adam Welsh, Alexa, Andy Blarg, Arch, Basement Dweller, BZ Soul, Boha, Brios, Cal, Can I Cuss on here?
Caesar T,
Cordant, Christo009, Cody Golden,
Corgi the Lad,
Couch MOBA, Crater, CW Glassworks,
Kyle Lapreed,
Daddy Dagoth, Dakota Storm Jones, Dondium, Danky Stank Swanky Make, Dara,
David Castillo,
Decode, Dutch Dejima Dealer,
Dylan Coffee,
8-Bit Funk, Elias, LPO, Elsa, Enix, Aesthetico, Everstone Isle,
Exa,
Fupa Saiyan,
Frankenstitch,
Glyph Seeker, Guard Corey, Gucci Plant, Hatsune Miku's Crack House,
Harkaj,
Heman Gamin Station, Hexmex,
Huey,
Ingenious Clown, I Punched a Sandwich, Irradiated Cherries, Ice Kyle, Ivy Ruth Langley,
Jason Lasky, Jaden, J-Daz, John Weber, Joke Frog,
Keegan Too Cool, Clocked, Creighton, Crazy Dark Chocolate, Kais,
Latrix, Laundry Mom, Lego Sid,
Lawn, Low Fat Mogert, Lucas Boyd, Lucky McSchmucky, Magical Madman,
Markules,
Maximilian Wolfgang Niver, Mike DeVR,
Milky Moo Official,
Mr. Dodongo, My PP is Hard, Niranu, Nito Torpedo,
Old Burgle,
Old Man Cranberry, Only LK, Gaplant, Pandemic Cowboy, PK Gaming, Potato Gaming HD, Quasar McDougal, Quillworth, Quinn, Reasonable Willow,
Reggie Rodriguez,
Sagitrash, Siren Smells Good,
Salty Smasher,
Sam Vertigo, Sekai no Awarida,
Shad,
Silver Bear 909,
Simp, God,
Sleepy Wabbit, Sockdolager, Space Lizard, Special Children, Spooky Grimulkin, Squishword, Starbound, Steve Invade, Sublime Cataclysm, Super Katsanova,
Super Sandwich Guy,
The Big Bubby, The Salt Knight, Thick Dick Mystic,
Thrips Heartdrop,
Timid the Writer, Timmy Tim Tam, Travis Edwards, Trevingsley, Twiddle Chungus, Vid,
Venom,
Vice Pup, Viewers Like You,
Vic,
Waposa, Weeb Trash,
well shit,
Winter Solstice, Zanny Tanner,
Yay, Kundo!
Young Citrus, Zachary Livesey,
Zachary V,
Zanaso,
Zane the Impure, Zane the Pure,
Zed Slayer Gamer, Zilvlin Ray, Cyberbunk.
If you'd like to help support the show and make it even better, check out my Patreon. We've got all kinds of goals and lots of rewards in store. Stay tuned for more. KBash out.